Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. You're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. And we got Christina Giordano here with us. We got Wham. We got Nisha and Norma Burton. Their book is Navigating Liminal Realms. And it's going to be a good show. There's one thing I want to say really quick, and of course, we're not going to get into this too heavily, but we watched the new South Park episode last night, and not to get into this too heavily, but apparently Trumplegooch sued Paramount, and somehow that fed into Colbert getting canceled somehow, because I guess he's always attacking him on a show or whatever. And so South Park did a $1.6 billion deal with Paramount and snuck a Trump tune in there. About the whole episode is about him and him suing everybody, and even Jesus is on. It's called Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus is even like, I gotta be careful, Trump will sue me. and I'm gonna. It's the funniest thing ever, and there is some vulgarity, and of course it's South Park. But God, if he ain't suing them, he's gonna be suing them now. That's for sure.
It's like at this point, bring it.
Yeah. Go ahead. That's what the whole episode's about, though. Him suing everybody. He sues the whole town of South Park. But anyway, and then of course there's some weird thing with an alien, and he's naked a lot with Satan in it. So,
they did something. If you remember the South Park movie, they did something really similar with Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
where there was all this subplot with Saddam Hussein being in a gay relationship with Satan, and it was hilarious. It was actually hilarious.
I would definitely recommend seeing it, but don't have children around for sure. But,
it's not for the faint of heart.
Exactly. But he's already released a statement about it, so of course from the White House. Yeah. The book is Navigating Liminal Realms, Psychonavigation Skills for Lucid Dreaming, Trance Journeys, and Altered States by Norma J. Burton and Nisha. Am I saying that? Is it Nisha Burton?
Nisha, yes.
Okay. From Georgia. I have to be careful with names. Yeah. And it's good to have you both here. And this is, Feinhorn Press is the publicist. Is the publishing company. So have y'all came together for other books before? Or is this your first book together?
This is our second book, and we're excited to work together as a mother-daughter team.
Cool. What was the first book?
Writing together.
Yeah, our first book is called Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living, and it's a book and oracle deck that teaches about how to have lucid dreams and work with your dreamscape through the art of pulling cards and being drawn to the lessons in a nonlinear way.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you here. And it's interesting to me, and I found the book interesting because of my own experiences. And the main reason we do the show is because we've had encounters from paranormal to UFO type stuff. And mine was after testicular cancer at 17 and all that kind of stuff. I had to go through chemo and stuff. And then several years later, my dad died, and I started to have really weird experiences that were just from UFO stuff to beings of light to, and it's strange because I know that there are all these realms around us, the quantum realms. And when I see this stuff, and I've seen it sober, I've seen it partying when I was younger with friends, whatever. I've seen it in different states of consciousness, but it's like something shows you. And last night I went outside, and it had been a while, and everything just seemed a lot more vivid in the heavens, like all the stars, and I think there was a meteor shower, and it just seemed like that something was touching me again and showing me. And I've seen the beings of light several times, more than once. And one time down here in Florida, I was completely sober, and for some reason I put on the Watchword Bible, and it was playing on a TV or something, and then something said, go outside, and like a thought, and look towards the house in the sky. So I went outside and did that and saw two people made of light as if they'd been in the house, go through the roof and fly into the heavens. And I don't know, I think maybe it was my dad, maybe it was angels, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was aliens beaming down, I don't know. But that was a big opener for me. And a lot of times, all these quantum realms, is that what liminal means? What does liminal mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a great one, sharing of your journeys and experiences. And liminal realms are, like you're talking about, the spaces in between. And so we have ordinary waking reality, which we're all very familiar with, but there's also the dream time and non-ordinary states of consciousness, these spaces that our awareness can travel to as well and be aware of and present in. And so what we teach about is how to navigate lucidly, meaning with clarity and awareness, into these non-ordinary states of consciousness, like the dream time.
And is there other ways I know you obviously do it when you're sleeping, but what are some other ways to do it? Or can you do it awake, like in meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that we talk about in our book is entering the liminal realms through drumming journeys. And it's a technology that has existed with humans going back to ancient times across cultures, of using the steady beat of the drum in a particular way in order to be able to transport your awareness, your consciousness into a liminal space, into non-ordinary reality. And then there's a map that we talk about, a pathway that you use and take in order to navigate down into this experience and then come back out of it too, and integrate the messages and lessons that you've learned in those non-ordinary realms.
I know I've seen in the Michael Harner or shamanism books, they've said something like there are ways to use the drum to where you don't need psychedelics or any kind of drug to get into those states, that the drum can do it. And I think that's possible. I mean, I definitely believe it, and I would love to know that more. Does it have that power to you?
That's exactly what we do. And I studied with Michael Harner in 1979 when he first came back from the Amazon and brought back that whole concept of using the drum to alter our consciousness, to be able to go into those lucid states. So that was so exciting to be in on that in the early days. And so that was a long time ago. And I've been leading shamanic drumming journeys, and then developed this all those years, and then developed this methodology that I call the Journey to Completion, which came out of all my many years of work with the Huichol, the tribe in central Mexico. And the Huichol did use peyote to ultimately have a very altering state experience. But leading up to that, there's a lot of work with the drum that takes you into the altered state so that you can begin to experience your own psyche and learning how to navigate in it before you jump into the deep end, So the drumming isn't just, like, oh, let's get together and drum. No, it's a particular kind of drumming, and it's really emanating through the shamanic drummer who is holding the energy for the portal to be open so that your consciousness can go into this altered state, into the underworld, first of all, so that you can have this experience that's very lucid. It's not just like a regular thinking or regular imagining experience. You use your imagination, but then you're met by another energy and you're experiencing something that's coming toward you. So you're having this deep, interactive experience with what we call the I-thou relationship. We're not really alone in our dream time, like a lot of people talk about. We're meeting other beings there. So there's a specific training that I really believe people need to have so that you're meeting your guide being. It's called your power animal, right? It's not just a woo-woo thing, but this is an ancient practice that humans need to meet up with an animal consciousness that they become intimate with and get to know very deeply. And then that consciousness guides you in these other realms so that you're safe and you're following after your power. You're learning about seeking to gather your power instead of dissipating your power. So anyway, that's a taste of the depth that you can go to in the drumming journeys.
And who you worked with? Michael Harner. Is there anyone else you've worked with like that's big like that?
Well, I'm of that same era and age, so lots of these people I was contemporary with. So Victor Sanchez, Sandra Ingerman, Alberto Vallaldo, all these people are my age, and I was working with them, and studied with the same people that they studied with. So I was privileged to actually get to study with some of the women that worked with Carlos Castaneda with the shaman Don Juan. So, the women that wrote the books, Florinda Donner, and those women, they came into Berkeley in the 80s. And I was really lucky to be one of the few people that got to meet them and then work with them personally over a period of about 9 months while they were available. So, yeah, I've had lots of wonderful training and always give honor to my lineage, especially the indigenous people lineage, right? So I grew up on a Native American reservation, Seneca Iroquois, where my grandparents were adopted. And then that really set me on a path of wanting to be with indigenous elders. So from my 20s on, I was seeking ways to work with indigenous elders, both in the United States and then Central America and South America. So yeah, my main teacher was Guadalupe de los Rios, who was a Huichol shaman. And then a wonderful teacher named Angela, who was a Candomblé shaman in Brazil. So anyway, you're asking about who I've studied with, and those are just some of the people.
That's very cool. Very cool to grow up on a reservation. That's
yeah.
Very interesting for sure. And a long time ago, I love Carlos Castaneda's writings and stuff like that. And one time I came across that book, and we don't have to get into this too heavily because it's got some dark connotations, but the Amy Wallace, that Sorcerer's Apprentice, I interviewed her, and she had lived with him, and it was kind of some weird abusive stuff. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was true. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but that was an interview I did a long time ago about him. But I always loved his writings, and definitely an interesting character. I know Wayne Dyer would bring him up a lot, and I love Wayne Dyer and his books and stuff.
I lived in Santa Fe for many years, right? So Wayne Dyer was there. Was of mine. All these other shamanic teachers, we all lived in Santa Fe in those years, So it was a great gathering of different.
That's
teachers.
Neat. That's very cool. One of the biggest ones we've had is Neil Donald Walsh on here. I was surprised he even came on my show twice.
He lives here in Ashland.
Really? Wow, yeah, that's cool.
Friend of ours here, yeah.
I was actually really nervous for that one. But, it was
Conversations with God.
Yeah. And the first time we tried to interview him, something went wrong with the Skype or something. And then I had to get his home number and call him. And the first thing he said to me was, "Jeffrey, you're 10 minutes late." I'm never late for anything. But anyway, he let us use his home number, and we interviewed him. But yeah, that's so cool that you grew up with all those people and inspired and influenced by that. And so what got you onto the both of you, if you one at a time, the journey of spirituality? For me, it seemed like it was a tragedy and a trauma going through what I went through with cancer and stuff. That was kind of the eye opener for me. And we've gotten to shows about trauma and UFO stuff and PTSD and things like that. But what were some of the catalysts to get you on your spiritual paths?
You want to go first?
I can talk about it first. So I feel lucky to have been raised in the lineage that I was raised in, and to be brought up by my mom, who from a very young age encouraged me to explore my spirituality, to explore the dream time. A lot of parents will, diminish the dream time in their children and say, "Oh, that was just a dream," or "We don't talk about those things." But for me, I was really encouraged to be present in my dream time and to listen to the messages that were being delivered to me through my dreams. And then beyond that, too, my mom, while I was growing up, led tours to various sacred sites around the world. And we studied with the various elders and shamans like she was talking about. So I got to be raised in that way of a very multicultural, spiritual childhood. And having that foundation, then I didn't ever have a phase where I felt like I needed to rebel from it. I really was just on a pathway of exploring these various world's traditions, as well as finding for my own particular life what resonated deeply with me and what paths woke up within me. And so, yeah, it was really a wonderful way to be in this life. And then finding lucid dreaming and those very beautiful and profound dream practices where you're experiencing the dream time in an entirely new way, because unlike a non-lucid dream, in a lucid dream, everything turns on in a really like a light switch being flipped on, and everything feels very real. And a lucid dream, for those that don't know that might be listening, is one in which you realize beyond a doubt that you're dreaming while still in the dream. So then you know that you have this level of agency, and everything feels very real as it does in this waking reality. And so you're able to interact with the dream world in an entirely new way. So that's a little bit of how my pathway from a young age was really beautifully led, and then being able to find what really worked for me in my soul's calling too.
I think both Nisha and I were mystics from our childhood, from birth, really. I think probably from our lineages. But for example, I had the amazing background of my great aunt on the one side and my grandmother on the other side of my family formed a church in the 1920s in inner city Buffalo that was, it was in the Judeo-Christian lineage, but it was a spiritualist, supernaturalist church where like people of color and white people were coming together, and all sorts of supernatural experiences were happening. And the women were in the leadership of it, with men supporting them. And wow, what an amazing thing to grow up within. And then to have the combination of growing up with the Native American teachings and elders. And so right from being little, I too was taught to value my dreams and to, like you talk about alien abduction experiences, right? I was seeing aliens or other beings from the time I was little and walking with them in the meadows and talking to them. And it wasn't at all unusual for me to be conversing with beings from other dimensions that were right there with me and having amazing experiences that were liminal, so to speak, or like how much of them were nighttime dreams, daytime dreams, things that were happening. I was crossing between the veils as a child, and Nisha had that too. And she's even more advanced in it than me, very sixth sense type person. So for example, with her, like I remember this one time in Salem, Massachusetts, we were walking past the cemetery there, and she said, "Mom, get me out of here. They're all coming and swarming around and wanting to talk to me." And then another time walking out on a lake in Native American territory, and we found out later that, horrifically, that the Native people were killed around that lake. But when we didn't know that when we were walking around there, and all the spirits started flying towards her and wanting to be with her because they could see what an open sixth sense person that she was, right? So maybe some people listening have this type of experience, where your channels are open, but a lot of people get afraid and start to shut down, right? Because they don't know what to do with it. So I've really felt called in my life to teach people, right? To help people know how to navigate these realms so that they don't have to be afraid, right? Yeah.
And was there, growing up on a reservation, was there a lot of spiritual things going on? I mean, obviously there was on some level, but was there like paranormal phenomenon? Did it seem like it was more attracted there because it was in that area?
It wasn't like Skywalker Ranch. I don't think so. I watched that show too. It's fascinating.
That show, I don't want to get into it because I could talk about it forever, but that's the craziest show.
Right?
Like, keep up with Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and that's the craziest stuff I've ever seen on TV. They had Chris Bledsoe on, and then he was on with his daughter summoning these ball plasma lights with the Monroe Institute and like X-Men gear. And then the creepiest thing is there's government spooks everywhere on that show. That's what's the creepy. There's CIA formula.
Researching it too, right? So I will say, though, I don't think that there were that type of things going on where I grew up, but my grandmother was very psychic, and she was like a resource for the community and the tribe. And so people would come to her with their dreams. They'd come to ask her questions about the future. She was a medically trained person, so she acted as the doctor of the tribe. But I think she was the shaman of the tribe, really, too, you know, because she came with all of that psychic ability and compassion, as well as her medical training. So she really helped people a lot in the dream time and the psychic realms. And then we also lived in New Mexico for many, many years. Now, talk about a vortex. There's definitely tremendous vortex activity going on around Santa Fe and that whole vicinity. So I could go on and on about many experiences that I had there that aren't as extreme as Skywalker Ranch, but still very crossing over the boundaries of the liminal. It's happening all the time there in Santa Fe.
Yeah, and I'll also say that, like my mom was saying earlier, being more open to various energies and visitations, learning about lucid dreaming and how to work with the dream space in a really conscious and empowered way was very profound for me, because, you know, when you're not doing that work, then it can be very frightening to have those experiences. And a lot of times, like, ghostly type energies will come and visit you in that liminal in-between state between waking and the dream time. And so a lot of people talk to us about the sleep paralysis state, which is one in which you are awakened, but your body is still paralyzed. And this is a process that normally happens when you go to sleep. Your body is immobilized so that you don't act out your dreams. However, regularly you come back online after the effects of the immobilization has worn off, so you're not afraid. But sometimes that process happens in the reverse order. So people are waking up, not able to move, and then often seeing a being or an energy at the foot of their bed or standing on top of them. And so it's a very frightening experience for a lot of people. However, when you learn and you start working with out-of-body states and lucid dreaming, you find this level of personal empowerment in that space, because you're no longer just going along with it. Like, for example, with lucid dreaming, you're not going along with the dream anymore as if it's real. When you realize, oh, wait, this is a dream. This is a different type of reality that I'm in right now. So I can interact with it and have more agency in this space. And so similarly with sleep paralysis states and those experiences, you can have this level of agency and this level of boundaries if you need to, saying, hey, you know, I don't actually want to interact with you right now. This is my space. And then you also get this level of discernment, just like in waking reality, where you can discern, is this an energy I want to interact with or not? Sometimes you can help the energies that come to you in that sleep paralysis state. Sometimes they're there to help you. However, you need to learn first how to feel empowered in that space and how to know that you have the ability to, you know, tell them to leave if you need to. And then you can start working with, okay, what energies do I allow into my liminal space of my dream time, and what ones do I not allow?
You can see how Nisha needed to learn that, right, from what I was sharing before, being an open channel that she is. She really started learning from a young age how to discern and how to have power and agency with beings that appear, so that you're navigating in ways that you choose and for your empowerment, and you don't have to be afraid. You learn how to be safe in those realms. And I could segue off to what you were saying earlier about how you were drawn into spiritual altered states, extreme experiences through the death of your dad, right? And through difficult experience in your own physical body. And the calling comes to us humans lots of times through difficult experiences like that, right? Can also come through jarring or shocking ecstatic experiences too, right? Experiences of seeing beings of light, or extremely good mystical experiences, or very difficult things. I myself am one of those people who had a near-death experience from a car accident. And so I actually was taken to the other realms. Like you hear people read about people being in heaven and being there and then being talked to and coming back. So when I went there, I met 4 beings of light, and I recognized them like my oldest, dearest friends. I just tried to describe it like from ages past and ages future. They seemed like eternal friends. And I stayed there with them for what seemed like a long time and got to ask all sorts of questions about my life and purpose. And they said, of course you want to stay here, but we prefer that you go back. And so I did return, and my work at the time was being a hospice chaplain. So I then got to be with many, many people on the threshold of going into the liminal space of the bardos and dying. And I think I was able to really help them so much because I myself had been there and seen the tremendous light and love, substantialness of the truth of the light and love that is there on the other side after we leave this body. So it was, it was a wonderful mission to be able to help people not to be afraid of death. I think that's part of what shamanic work is all about too, right? The work with the dreams and with the drumming journeys is to help people have a mini experience of going into the underworld, right? And their shadow realms and facing things that they're afraid of so that they don't have to be so afraid of death, So it's a practice, right? Going into the underworld, facing into difficult things, getting the gift from them and returning. So you're practicing over and over again, navigating in these liminal realms so that you're more capable of having what's called a good death. And like Carlos Castaneda says, not just losing all your power when you cross over that threshold, but maybe we can go out of here with some modicum of power that we've gained by having consciousness in our lives, being lucid.
Had Don Oscar, always Miro Quesedo. I'm probably not saying his name right. I've messed it up. But do you know I'm talking about? Don Oscar, a shaman from Peru.
Yes, I've heard of him.
And well, anyway, he said that down there they have like kind of like parties and watch those beings of light in the heavens, and he has video of it and stuff. Wow. So that was pretty interesting. I'm getting goosebumps from it, but I pretty much have broke down that that's what we are. I mean, it seems like that's what we are, crammed in these egg yolks or whatever these are, these shell. But it seems like we're beings of light, and it's really weird just to think about that. That we're just like, I don't know, sometimes I jokingly say gas bags, but this energy being like that. And when I've seen them, I've also seen them in the heavens like stars together, almost like looking at a weird Sims game. And I know that's where those quantum realms are. And I think when we pass away, you kind of get like it's a transit station, so to speak. And I found it interesting. There's a book, Afterlife of Billy Fingers, Annie Kagan, that's pretty good about the afterlife. Her brother passed away, and he appeared to her as a being of light, like from a cloud or something. And I also had that happen with my dad. And I think it was him, but there was a being of light standing on a cloud going like, because I was partying with a friend and he was driving. Luckily, it wasn't a long drive, but it was still driving, which he shouldn't have done. But I was wondering if it was like, no. And I'll never forget that. But definitely, I always use Ron Howard's Cocoon movies. There's definitely we're beings of light, I think. I don't try to press it down anyone's throat, but it definitely seems like it for sure.
We're trying to help people wake up to that fact, right? Because then we can start using our true powers more consciously for the highest good. Weechol taught me that we're supposed to, be cleansing our attachment to misuse of powers and squandering our power, so that we can start using our powers for the highest good of all. And that's why we're here, to be these beings of light, to know who we are, and to use our powers for the highest good. Nisha, when you go into the dream time, and especially in the lucid dreaming, you've actually seen your body, witnessed your body as the blue light that it is, right?
Yeah, it's, as you were just talking about too, it's powerful the more experiences you have like this, that you get to see firsthand beyond this veil of waking reality. You realize your greater self more and more. And so with lucid dreaming, especially out-of-body experiences, which are slightly different than a lucid dream, you really get to see what your form is like outside of this physical body. And just briefly to say the difference, how I distinguish out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams are that a lucid dream is one in which you become aware that you're dreaming within the dream material. So you're having the dream, and then you have a moment where you question, could I be dreaming? And sometimes spontaneously you'll realize, yes, in fact, I am dreaming. Or you can also perform what is called a state check or reality check, which is an action that you do in order to verify whether or not you're dreaming, like looking at your hands and flipping them back and forth. And when you do that in waking reality, it stays your waking reality hand. However, when you do that in the dream time, your hand will be different. You'll have an extra finger, or it will be glowing blue. So then you know, okay, yes, I'm in the dream time. I'm dreaming. So that's a lucid dream. An out-of-body experience is oftentimes one in which you go into the lucid state from this closer to this waking reality, like in your bed, while you're, again, having a sleep paralysis state experience, which is oftentimes how people get into the out-of-body state. You're not able to move your physical body, and so then you can actually pull your dream body up out of your sleeping body. And then you're in your room looking around, but again, you're not in your physical body. You can even look back at your sleeping body and see it there. And in that state, it's much closer to this waking reality. And so venturing into the out-of-body state many, many times, I had a beautiful and profound experience of seeing my dream body becoming more and more solid. The more energy I was giving in that state, the more consciousness and lucidity I was lending to that dream body as I was pulling my dream body up out of my physical sleeping body and in then the out-of-body experience, the more and more it became formed. And just like you were talking about, I saw it as this blue light body. And so having that as a firsthand experience rather than just thinking about it theoretically is really powerful, because then you do get to see what our form is beyond this form.
How do you get to a state of being, I guess, conscious during that dream state? Because so I remember dreams, but it doesn't seem like I dream that much. And most of the time, most of my stuff, when I see things like that, it's like awake, more like it seems like imagination. But I know there's more to it than just, imagination. There's more to imagination than just meets the eye too. But what are some ways to kind of become awake during that time?
Yeah, that's a lot of what we teach people about, is how to have lucid dream experiences. And what it is really, it's a practice that you do during your waking reality to train your mind to constantly be questioning whether or not you could be dreaming. Because we have our dreams, and when we're in them, we just assume that it's waking reality. And it's only once we wake up, then we realize, oh, I was dreaming. However, when you engage in the practices of lucid dreaming, you perform these actions during the day. So briefly, I'll just give a quick teaching on how to train your mind towards lucidity. First, you want to remember your dreams and be writing them down, so you are giving energy and importance towards your dream time, so it will open up to you. And then next, what you do is you look for things that commonly appear in your dreams. These are called dream signs, and there are some universal ones that a lot of people have, like standing in front of a class and giving a presentation, or being by a large body of water. And then there's also personal dream signs that will be particular to the person. And so I have a lot of times in my dreams, I'm driving my car and maybe it's not working just right, or I'm in an elevator and it malfunctions. So there are these signs that appear regularly in our dreams, these motifs. And then what you do is you find dream signs that also appear in your waking realities. And an example of that, again, with the elevator is then every time you encounter an elevator in waking reality, what you do when you encounter a dream sign is you question, could I be dreaming? So you're training your mind to constantly be asking while you're awake, could I be dreaming? And then the next part to that, and the real key ingredient of that, is to perform a state check or a reality check, like I just spoke about. You can look at your hand and flip it back and forth, or you can jump up into the air. And if you land like you normally would, as gravity normally functions, you know that you're awake. However, if you're in a dream, you will float, you will fly, your feet will stay off the ground even just a few seconds longer than they normally would. And so by performing these state checks while you're awake, you're creating that neural pathway. Okay, every time I ask, could I be dreaming? I do this action to actually check whether or not I'm dreaming. And you need to earnestly question it too, not just think, oh, of course I'm not dreaming. And when you do that, then when you're in a dream and you ask that question and then you perform a state check, you have that aha moment of realizing, oh, wait, I have an extra finger, or I didn't land on the ground. Okay, I know I'm dreaming. And that's how you switch into lucidity, because you know then beyond a doubt that you're dreaming within the dream. And then you're able to engage with the dream material in an entirely new way because you're awakened to that lucidity. So that's a brief rundown on how people can start training their minds toward lucidity and really constantly questioning throughout the day and then performing state checks throughout the day are the two key ingredients to be able to have more lucid dreams at night.
I know I've had some UFO encounters where I've seen UFOs over me with witnesses, and I don't know if I've ever been like taken like physically, but I don't rule it out either. But I've also think that they work with us on those kind of levels. And I think there's a fearful part of me with wanting to know. People say I should be hypnotized and stuff. I'm like, oh, no. And, I think there is a part of me, but that's part of it. Exploring that to find out more about it, I think, is what the book's about, and getting into those realms. And I guess there's parts of me that's worried about what I'll find there too. When you see a UFO sitting in the sky over you, it seems like it's there for you. That's a lot on the psyche. And but that's ways to explore it too, though. There's some exercise someone told me about. Like, I had one encounter where me and a friend saw some small hooded beings in the woods, and I'd been reading some Celtic otherworld kind of stuff then. And there were these small hooded beings, and they looked kind of like Jawas, but skinnier, and you couldn't see their faces or eyes. And they had a little black box in front of them, but a cat jumped near them and they vanished, and we both saw it. And later we found that cat passed away. This was a long time ago, like 15 or 20 years ago or something. But someone told me to imagine that you are that being in their body looking through their eyes, and what are they there for? That's even giving me the creeps right now and giving me goosebumps. So there's so many strange exercises like that this fits into with the subject matter of the book and everything. But I think this is what a tool, your book and the things you talk about, a tool to understanding that kind of stuff on the levels that I've been through with it. And for others, it would be helpful too, because this kind of subject matter is definitely, I guess, medicine for people that have been through that to figure out more about it.
Yeah. Like what you're saying about being in their body. That's a big practice in the working in the drumming journey, lucid state work, that you meet a being, a power animal that you actually are meeting, and it's very real. You're not making it up in your imagination. It's often shocking and not disturbing, but very real. And you have a sense of trust though right away. And there's a test of 4 that I teach people how to ascertain if it really is their friend, their being that's going to be their guide. So you get to know this animal, and you eventually become it. Like you're saying, like you are in it, and it is in you, and you're running like it runs, and eating like it eats, and flying like it flies. You're with it, in it, and experiencing this embodiment of a being of another dimension. So it's an amazing thing, and very, very real, something that humans have been doing all through the centuries as a way of expanding their consciousness. So that brings me to the other subject you're talking about too, about it's awesome to encounter beings from other dimensions. And how do we not be afraid? Well, one of the main ways that I teach people that we need to not be afraid by doing our shadow work. So just in a brief nutshell, what that means is that when we're young, lots of times difficult things happen and our psyche splits. When something difficult happens, a part of us goes up into our persona and our self that we have to show to the world, and a part of us goes down into our unconscious, into our shadow. So I take the extreme example of like somebody who's sexually abused. Like the abuser might say to them, don't tell anybody. And so their voice goes down into their shadow. They can't speak of it, and maybe they can't even remember it. And then what goes into the persona, be a good girl, and then so they're serving people and always trying to make everybody happy and be good. So the split develops in our psyches. We all have some kind of splits like that happen because power gets misused against us. Even if we have the best parents, they make mistakes, or teachers in school. So we have difficult things that happen to us that make us split. And we observe these adults in our lives misusing power. And so we're being trained about power all the time, and we get trained into the misuse of power. But what the shamanic work is about is going back and looking at these inception points where we learned about power, and then healing that, allowing our shadow memories to come up and allowing our persona self to deconstruct so that we can integrate that information and gain our power back. And I teach people, I'm not going into great detail about it here, but teach people how to get their power back so that you're not just walking in fear then. In fact, you become impeccable with power. And so that's a core of what shamanic work is about, right? Is facing into the shadow realms, getting your power back. It's called gathering your power. And then you start walking, not with a misuse of power, but with being impeccable with energy and power and using it correctly and for the highest good of yourself and others in every situation. So you hear what I'm saying? That's a way to not be afraid, is to be able to gather your power back to yourself that way.
Well, you just answered the question that I was going to ask you about, because I was fascinated with this little chart that you have on page 48, figure 1, the shadow formation and integration, because what it reminded me of, and this is something I've only just recently become aware of in my own life, is there were two formative experiences in my early life. One was at the age of 4 when I was sexually assaulted by my father. And when I looked at the chart, it was interesting because what I didn't for many years remember all of that experience. I remember chunks of it, you know what I mean? So it's not like I forgot the whole thing. But what I did remember about it, the thing that stuck with me about it, was I remember as a child, 4-year-old, physically feeling that split. I mean, I was really aware of how this part of me just sort of, I felt like a black hole had just opened up and I was just falling into it, And then some years later, I mean, it was maybe it was about 2 years later, I had the second most formative experience of my life with a friend of mine, and we had a very close UFO sighting. And I didn't know, this was in the 60s, so I didn't have a frame of reference for what I was seeing. And it scared me. It scared the crap out of me, actually, because I felt like I felt really clearly like we were being observed, but the other thing that came out of that experience was for the first time in my life, in my memory, I experienced myself being a distinct person, I had this sense of me as a person apart from my family, apart from my background. I was kind of brought up in what I call a single family cult, religious cult. You know, it was the cult of my religious cult of my father, basically. And, you know, it was almost like I was getting attention from something that didn't have anything to do with all of that, you know. And even though it was terrifying, it was also interesting. and that experience is the experience that created in me the impetus to explore things that would finally bring my healing into focus. I mean, my path of healing was very, I mean, I also went to Michael Harner's things very, very early, like in the early 1980s. I took a different path. I do some shamanic things. I don't call it that because to me, the word shaman is a culturally specific word. So I used a different word to describe what I did. And a lot of what, a lot of the practices about dreaming and stuff I've learned from the Seth material, which has a lot of this kind of stuff in it, just not structured in quite the same way. But it's only been recently that I've realized that I looked at that chart in your book and I was like, yeah, I can see where, you know, I mean, I have a slightly different experience or interpretation of the shadow than what you gave. But because to me, the shadow was more than just simply, you know, that split. It's, to me, it's also the tendency towards that split. It's also ancestral things and past life things, and, you know, a whole host of other things that also need to be resolved in some of us. You know, splits can happen in many lives and follow you. You know, splits can happen in ancestral lineages and follow you. You know, so it's not, to me, it's not just a psychological thing, but that's how I've been thinking about all this lately. Is like, you know, that split happened when I had that trauma, and I've had a lot of other traumas since. You know, I mean, I look at my life and it's like, oh my God, you know, what's wrong with me? But anyway, I really think that UFO experience was whoever or whatever that was, because I don't really know. I think that was that curiosity that I had through the terror. I think that was the impetus that led me to heal that wound. It took a long time, you know. I mean, it took, I don't know, 50 years, you know, ultimately, because that initial wound was not the only one, obviously, you know. People who attack you like that don't just attack you once, generally. Right. So, but I think that's a good chart, you know, because I'm assuming that what you mean is that because, you know, you have that split and then you have that instability, and that instability is what people talk about, you know, even under normal circumstances when they like encounter Bigfoot, whatever that is, you know, and they feel like their life has just, you know, what they thought they knew has been shaken to the core. And it changes them, because that's really what my academic research has been about looking at these accounts and looking at how people's lives have been changed just fundamentally just by encountering the unknown. You know, what we call the paranormal. I personally don't believe the paranormal exists. It's just something we haven't identified yet. But then I guess what you guys are doing is teaching techniques by which to reintegrate that stuff together, or come to understand those, you know, the truth of yourself in light of these experiences, you know, which will necessitate a reassembly of some type. You know, you're not going to be the same as you were, but you probably don't want to be the same as you were, so. But
Right.
so for people that are looking at your book, page 48 has this cool graphic on it, which I think summarizes it all pretty well.
Well, that was a beautiful rendition of things that you just spoke there. And I'll just say a couple things back to it. I was a therapist for many years and working with the realms of trauma, family abuse and trauma for many years, and went to lots of kinds of therapy myself too, along with working with different shamans and healers around the world. So by the time I was in my 40s, I wanted to come up with a methodology that would help people to safely be able to go through this reckoning, like you say, this facing into the difficult things that did split them and change them, and be able to deconstruct the defense mechanisms that formed to protect them. Because after a while, even though they work for us for a while, the defense mechanisms, like say we have a big encounter with a UFO at a young age and it's very scary, and so we shut down and just get very involved in work. And then as you get older, you become a workaholic, so that defense mechanism forms to protect you, but it becomes dysfunctional after a while. So you have to come to the point where you're willing to let that structure of yourself, that defense mechanism, come apart. And that's when you seek out a safe container. So I wanted to create a safe container where people could go into that deconstruction of the self that needed to come apart, and to be able to go deeply within their own unconscious and into the spiritual realms and find these inception points and heal them, so that they could reconstruct a more whole, more healthy self. And so the journey to completion is what I came up with after lots of thinking and, lots of melding of all the different things I had learned. And so I've been teaching that now for over 35 years. And it's just what you're talking about. It's a pathway that is a safe container. It's an alchemical container of transformation that you can go into and systematically, step by step, in a careful enough way, approach these splits and these places of the unknown inside of ourselves, these scary places, so that we can integrate and become more aware and become a more whole person. So that journey to completion, is a naming of it that I got from the Weechol, and they gave me permission to teach it as such, but that we can walk a pathway in our lives of completing these strands of our shadow, these things that have happened to us that are traumatic, that have caused us to react in certain ways and become unstable, like you're saying, to have instability. And we can complete those and bring one strand at a time to completion, like weaving a rug, so that by the time we come to the end of our life, we have completed our destiny calling of this lifetime and healed those various wounds and gained our power back, really healing the lineages too. Like you say, that lots of times it's an ancestral lineage, is a certain kind of pattern of things like sexual abuse, that are in the lineage, and the buck stops here. Like we might be the one to heal that lineage pattern, right? So the journey to completion is, I love to do it with people in groups and individually, is my life work, as a way of helping people to heal.
I wanted to say that Christina's been in tears at what you've been saying in a good way, and you can explain more if you like.
Hey, well, a lot of the things you guys were talking about, it's just, even Wham, everything is insane, because just going back to my earliest roots, I can remember growing up in Arizona and just really cult-like mindset growing up in the church and so on. There was good things with it, for sure. Again, knowing my actual Pentecostal roots and coming to Florida from Arizona, where I was born, and just knowing all the weird stories you guys are talking about, and it just hits home. That's what I was thinking. Even going from labor and delivery as a night nurse to taking care of my grandma in hospice, and just the insanity that's opened up in my mind and in my life that truly I didn't want. That's for sure. It's like no one wants to be molested and see things all their life that's like, oh my God, like as a nurse going, I can't tell people, even coworkers, the stuff I deal with on the day to day. They'll lock me up, like being scared really, to be honest about things. Like, I've had a medical card and I'm scared I'm going to lose my license as a nurse, just weird things. And yet I've worked with nurses that are open with, let's get drunk after work. I'm like, we're working a night shift. I want to go home. Like, can't we all let's have fun together and talk about good things. It's like, it's sad when I realize our life is really, it's hard because I feel as a nurse, we're not allowed to feel, like literally feel. That's the problem. I'm crying because I'm like, oh my God, this is a safe place. And I've never had that. I've been a nurse where it's like, you're scared to get sick taking care of other people. And I felt scared all my life. That's what I realized, like going back. And even Jeffrey's show has opened my mind and learning things that I'm like, okay, I've been scared of this all my life. So I chase my fears. No wonder I'm crazy. Because I know as a nurse, it's like the more that I can chase my fears, hopefully they don't define me. But I've realized you can run into an actual hell as well and get stuck there. At least that's where I've been as a medical person, and I've been told by other people I'm this, and that, and whatever. A Hyoka clown to a shaman or whatever. I'm like, I don't want any of it. Can I just feel safe? It's like, so you're talking and I'm like running out of the room. So I'm like, oh my God. It's like, I felt crazy all my life, especially around people I should feel safe with. And that's the worst part. I know I've been called the witch and condemned to death, literally, and abandoned by, sadly, people who are a part of the church and the medical field and so on. I know what it's like to have a miscarriage of a child, and you have to just like literally be a robot and try to go back to work the same day or the next day and show no emotion. And it's like insanity to the point where it's like, where is there a safe place in this life? So I know I sound nuts and I don't care. My earliest memory and fear is actual heights, like falling from the sky as I believe, like a light being. Exactly. I've told him this. Like, I believe I was a star, like, and somehow knew my mother, knew she was sadly mentally ill, like all these crazy things. And I'm like, why would I have signed up for this? Exactly. It's like somehow we do have, I believe, soul contracts or whatever. We're supposed to come here and do a mission. And legitly, so many people get stuck, I feel, in depression and this like loop. I know what it's like to be alive and yet dead, and literally doing the same thing and expecting a different result and going, why do I feel crazy? And why do I keep doing the same dumb thing? And it's like, somehow in my DNA to keep doing it, like as sad as it is to be a slave, to be abused, to all kinds of insanity, that I'm like, what is this? So someone, and I believe I shouldn't say it, but I feel the world is changing. And I've been told even prophetically from different things as well in my background that women are supposed to take the torch back basically and be like, enough of this. Like, we're going to change the history and be like, no more are we under men, whatever these things are. Like, I've learned so much out in the last 5 years of my life that I never learned in a book. And just realizing there's so much connection throughout life and history and cultures that you can't deny it. And it keeps showing itself, whatever that means. Synchronization through different stories and people and cultures that have never known each other. And yet you see the same thing. And that are all saying it's time to take back exactly, first of all, our minds and our hearts. Like, what do we feel? Like, there's something in our culture, sadly, that says we shouldn't feel anything. And we need to just keep taking medication and basically numbing the pain and running from it. And anybody who knows healing knows numbing means you're a step from death. Like, that's actually worse than death. If you can die and transition, like as a labor and delivery nurse, like it's better to move forward and somehow get out of the literal hell that we're stuck in because we're not moving forward. So basically you are, which is awesome, a transition person. You help step in, which is what it is. Even WHAM, like teachers who come along and say, hey, you're not crazy. You're not alone. Actually, a lot of people have done this crazy shit and we're not doing it anymore. Actually, we're going to stop it. And yes, exactly. Like, what is reality? I spend every day saying, why does this life feel like a nightmare that I can't wake up from? That's the problem. He's like, what is going on out there? It's like you're saying, how to have lucid dreams. I'm like, how do we deal with this craziness that's going on the day-to-day basis and actually not lose what's left of your mind to whatever's telling you not to think and not to feel and not to deal with the insanity, just keep going on with life like a robot. That's maybe my thought. Someone's trying to make us feel like robots, like it's not okay to feel and it's not okay to connect. And, even a lot of things have happened in the last couple of years that I thought were normal. It's like, no, this isn't normal. And yet I've been programmed to think it is. And if you say it's not normal, then you can get kicked out of society in ways. Like, I know what it's like to say, if I tell them what I feel and what I think and what I see, they're going to lock me up. Well, sadly, I know what it's like to be locked up as a nurse. And yet literally offered a job at the facility, where it's like, this is insanity. This is all business. So how do we take back what is supposed to be real? And what is real? That's the worst part, is the nurse that's like, exactly. I don't get along with anybody most of the time because I'm not going to play the games. I'm not going to play the roles that I've always had to. Like, I guess as the codependent and the good girl, exactly, you were saying, like, we're supposed to play roles. I guess I should say, as I feel a good woman should be. We're supposed to be quiet and we're supposed to take orders. And I mean, think of all the things as a nurse is supposed to be. And I've had to tell Jeffrey that. I'm like, even in the USA, we didn't have nurses actually until Civil War, I think. And sadly, the men were all blown up. And so then they got pulled out of the kitchen. And then all of a sudden we were being in roles of the nurse. And it's all based on the military and all this weird stuff. So it's like, it shouldn't be a shocker when the military is right there where there's UFO and intelligence and things, because they're going to try to take all of that intelligence and use it probably for maybe not the best things. So somehow, how do we use our brains to actually connect? So it was insane, like just the things you were saying, just knowing you're even in Oregon. Like I was a part of roller derby in Medford, Oregon. So it's just like everywhere you're talking about, I'm like, oh,
I know some of those women. Yes, I do.
Even to Wham, it's like, I just want to give you guys a hug, like a virtual hug. And I think that's what we need, is a safe space more than ever, to just not feel actually crazy. First of all, like, no, it's okay to say you saw and felt these things. And, a lot of people around the world have actually gone through these things throughout time. And how do we use it for the good? And so I really appreciate, he gave me this book and invited me tonight. Probably for us 4 women to talk, so they didn't have to. But basically, it's like, no, I believe everything happens for a reason.
2 books sent me by accident too, so that was the same thing. Yeah, you could give her the one, but there's an extra.
Well, I just want to thank you for everything that you just bravely said, because so many people out there listening, I'm sure, can relate to everything you've said. But growing up in, a Pentecostal religion like I did too, you're opened up to the supernatural, but you've got to have training in what to do with that, and so to have safe containers was what we need. And that's what I've created all my life, from being director of battered women's shelters, which were safe containers, to being director of drug and alcohol recovery centers, and then to having my own private practice with bringing people to the safe container, both online, like we can do it online with lots of people at once, and then come together in person too, to have these safe containers where you can speak about everything you just said, because so many people are going through those same kinds of questions and wondering, like being a social worker myself through all those early years, watching all the social workers go out and drink afterwards to numb out, because not knowing how to face into so much pain and so much trauma. So people really need help to be able to soothe ourselves and empathize with what we've been through, and be in these safe containers where, like, I have people do a trauma timeline, right, where we're collecting and bringing together all in an organized way the traumas around certain themes in our life. So in other words, there's ways to talk about these things and to not be so overwhelmed by them, but to start to, balance and calm ourselves with it, and then to go systematically after the healing of it, to getting our power back. And like you kept talking about, what is reality? What is reality? Well, we can find reality. And like in Buddhist teachings, it says that we can get to Tathagata, which is reality such as it is. But how do we get there? Through this deconstructing of our minds, and finding the truth within us. and that reality. We've got to find those reality bases, and be in those reality bases with each other, right, in community, so that we can grow our strength and be able to be, more stable in ourselves and create safety for other people, so that we can go about changing the world, like you're saying, women coming together, telling the truth, and then changing reality, and with good men's help, That's what we're doing right now. That's what we have got to do. So thank you so much for saying everything that you did. That was so wonderful to hear you speak, right? Because it just touches the heart, everything that you're saying. Just appreciate it.
Yeah, and another thing, picking up off of that I heard in what you were talking about is, in our culture, a lot of times we're taught to externalize our power, to have the authority figures that we look to tell us what reality is, to tell us what we should do, etc., etc. And so a lot of the work that my mom and I do and that we write about in the book is learning how to find your personal power, which does require you to venture inward, and in this skillful way of knowing the map of how to safely go in, like we're talking about right now. There are traumas when you go into your psyche. There are things that you might not want to consciously look at. So having the map of a clear way to take a piece of your shadow pattern, to take a piece of the traumas that you're going to be looking at and examining, doing that within a safe container, getting the gift out of them, that really is the core of the work in the drumming journeys, in the journey to completion modality that my mom has developed, and the lucid dreaming, is understanding how we find our personal empowerment through venturing into our psyches skillfully, navigating within them, and being able to deal with the material that we're presented in our inner worlds, in our minds. And what I also love about this organic process when you are working with your own inner world is that you are presented with things in a timing that is right for you. You can trust that what is revealing itself, that what memories are surfacing or what nightmares you're having in your dream time are there in just the right timing for you to work with. And also what's presenting itself in waking reality for you to work with. Then when you have this framework in order to hold it all and collect it all, then you can see how it's all perfectly unfolding in the right timing, and you can make meaning out of it, because that's a lot of what our minds are constantly trying to do in reality, is make meaning out of the experiences that we've had, out of both the traumas we've had, the life experiences we've had, and the non-ordinary states of consciousness, and those types of experiences we have. And so this is a way to draw those threads, draw those lines together, and be able to piece together the meaning of the overall gestalt of what you're experiencing in these various states of consciousness.
Yeah, we're supposed to be putting together the puzzle pieces of our lives and coming to understand our destiny path. Like you said, we are here. Like you said, we're called from the other dimension to here, to these particular, even though they're difficult experiences, right? To experience them and to bring things through to healing and to a better place. And so that's why we're here. And we've got to understand the puzzle of our lives, right? And make meaning out of it, as Nisha was saying. So I love your radio show, because I think that's what you're trying to help people do, it seems like, is make meaning out of their experiences in the unknown and things that are awesome. And
thank you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been going on about 18 years, and it basically happened because of my UFO stuff. And there was a point where I was having trouble getting interviews, and I said a prayer, and then had another UFO sighting and got put on a radio show through MUFON somehow, which I'm not associated with them anymore. And then next thing you know, I was talking about this experience. And then next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Stanton Friedman and Lloyd Pye and Nick Pope, all these like greats from UFOs. It was like, did the aliens like hook me up? It seemed like it. So we've been doing it for a while, and it was from experiences. But yeah, I was going to say your book's kind of like the Beetlejuice afterlife book, but you don't have to croak to use it. So that's good. You don't have to die. But that's kind of what this is too. It's exploration of those realms where you're going when you croak. And this week has been crazy. Ozzy Osbourne, who I grew up listening to, passed away. And, he was actually Christian, and a lot of people thought he wasn't. And of course, he acted kind of crazy with dark side stuff. But when that last concert he just did, he gave like $2 million, or I don't know, it was a lot of money, maybe $100 million. I'd have to relook at the numbers, but that all went to Parkinson's and children, to help them when that last show. And then now we got Hulk Hogan. I used to play with a big action figure of Hulk Hogan, and he just croaked. But we're all going to do it. So this stuff is lucrative to study because it's an exploration of where you're going, probably.
Right? We're here for a short time, and so heaven is real, like they say. We are going on to another place. So, but like they say in Buddhism too, this human life is such a precious opportunity, right? To work with our choices and to refine who we are and to try to bring healing to humanity and planet Earth. It's such a great opportunity, this life. So that's why Nisha and I are advocates of becoming as aware as you can, right? So that you can use it powerfully.
Well, it's definitely been great having you all on. And of course, our dog Pumpkin, the Dachshund, is rubbing his backslide on a weird shelf because he has an itch and making weird noises. So I need to move him in a minute. And then you have Edgar that tries to snore. I'm like, will you stop it? And but great show, and keep us in the loop on future projects. And definitely loved it. And that I'm someone that when I went through the chemo and came back to school, kids made fun of me and said I had AIDS. It was like, gee, that's nice. And I used that shadow side to protect myself and defend myself, and kind of got in the metal and the gothic. I'd never called myself that, but wearing black and stuff, and it scared kids away, and they called me vampire, and I'd say weird stuff to them to scare them away. But that shadow side now, I'm probably, it's like turned into Nosferatu, and I have to kill it with fire. But the shadow stuff is probably stuff I need to work on. But it definitely the book is great, and we appreciate it so much. And do you have a website or anything you want to give out?
Yeah, so our website is luciddreaminglucidliving.com. And on that website, you can find links to both of our books that we've written, as well as we're launching several online courses that people can take to dive deeply into.
She's just bidding. Sorry.
Oh, no. No worries. Yeah, and so that's a great place that we love to. And it also has our contact information. We love talking about these things, answering any questions people have. And then we also have our Instagram, which is the same name, Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living on Instagram, where we post bite-sized information around all of these things that we've been talking about. A YouTube channel with the same name, Lucid Dreaming, lucidliving.com. And then for my mom's work, The Journey to Completion, and her deep trauma healing and shadow work, normaburton.com is the website there.
What was the first site you gave? Because I know one of the dogs messed with another dog, but what was that first original link you gave?
Yes, Lucid Dreaming, lucidliving.com.
All righty. Well, we appreciate it. I also got sent to the office for a weird Aussie t-shirt in 9th grade. Had to change it. But we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and y'all have a great weekend and have a safe journey at your conference. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. Pumpkin was scraping his butt on a shelf, and Harley, for some reason, nipped at him, which she's a little butthole. But let's see. That was a good one for sure. Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
What a week. God.
Yeah, it's been a week. It has been that.
That was crazy that Ozzy did that concert, and I've watched some of it, but I want to watch the whole thing. But he basically apparently came off his pain meds to do it, and then did it. And then all that money went to Parkinson's and some other place for kids and cancer or something. But and then he dies like a week later or two or something, not very long after. So that was definitely the final show, quite literally. It's amazing that he could still get up there and sing. Even Jack Black got up there and sung Mr. Crowley with some kids. That man, those kids jammed. They were young dudes playing guitar and drum, and I don't know how old they were, maybe 12 or 14 or something, but those kids were jamming out perfectly, doing Black Sabbath and Ozzy songs. It was crazy. But and then Hulk Hogan the day after, which I'm not into wrestling these days, but when I was younger, I was. Like when it was Andre the Giant. For some reason, I saw Hulk Hogan in my head with Andre the Giant in heaven. So, but gosh, someone said bubble wrap Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson's like 92 now or something.
He'll outlive us all.
Yeah. I think of marijuana we were going to ask this, but I didn't get to suppresses dreams on some level. I think there's good qualities to it, but I think for some reason it does seem to do that. Like you don't dream on it. I mean, you might, some people might, but I swear I don't dream at all. Once in a while I do, but I bet if I stopped doing it for a bit and slept, it would probably be like just a onslaught of dreams. I've had that happen before when I've stopped using it, but I don't know why it does that. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what the reason is of that, but that's kind of a negative, I would think of it on some level. But the weirdest thing about Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, that Katie Page lady, she's writing a new book about her ranch experiences. But the weirdest part is they're going to these ranches, and all these ranches seem to have activity there. So it's like, why ranches? And that's what I was wondering about reservations, because I bet those are hot spots as well for all kinds of stuff that we don't often hear about. But every ranch they go to, there's weirdness, just weird.
And I grew up on a ranch. That's what's weird with the Skinwalker Ranch and all that.
I wonder if she's saying Skywalker because she didn't want to say the S Walker, if it was just a typo. But maybe she just don't like saying the word. She kept saying Skywalker.
Because we're not supposed to say the name, I thought. I mean, if you're not wanting to feed it energy. Yeah. That's why they say, sadly, dumb white people, because they talk about things they shouldn't. But we need to learn how to talk about things for the right reasons to try to help.
And then what else? They canceled Resident Alien. At least the guy knew, so he's doing a closing episode that's supposed to be really good to end it, but they always get everything. They canceled Duster. That was good. It wasn't like the greatest thing I ever seen or anything. It's still good. They cancel everything. Cancel. But yeah, that South Park episode, that was freaking crazy. Trump was basically naked with his little wiener with the devil in the bed.
I have not seen that yet. I have to see
you
it,
have
though.
Paramount, so you got it.
I do. I just, I haven't had the time to just sit down and like watch. I haven't seen the third season of Strange New Worlds is on, and they've 3 episodes have gone by, and I haven't had time to watch those either. So it's
if you get a chance to do the little 22-minute episode, the newest episode called Sermon on the Mount, do it. And you'll laugh a lot. My mom even watched it and laughs like, I'm going to watch all these now.
Well, what the suggestion in Facebook is going is that, right now, because Paramount has just merged, there's been this big corporate merger, that there's like a free trial going on. And so what people on Facebook are saying is sign up for the free trial and watch South Park, and then when it'll come up and say recommendations, and always recommend Stephen Colbert because he's CBS too. And then before your 7 days is up, cancel. And when they ask why, basically say, I'm canceling because you guys are Trumpish butt lickers or something like that. In other words,
So why are they saying CBS is Republican now? I mean, I never knew what it was to begin with. But
no, it's not that they're saying CBS is Republican. It's what they're saying is that CBS, in firing Colbert, CBS CBS was in the middle of dealing with a lawsuit that the Trump administration had filed against them, supposedly for being too liberal. Okay. And some content from some content, I think it was 60-minute content from last year. Okay. So they were still in the process of resolving that. And at the same time, there was this business merger that CBS Paramount wanted to do with another company, and the FCC was kind of holding it up. And so it within within like 36 hours, the lawsuit was resolved. The merger was approved, and Colbert on Monday had been particularly hard, on Trump. And then on Tuesday, all these things happened and he was fired. So it looks very suspicious. It looks very, to the outsider, it looks like, it looks like basically Paramount wanted to merge with this thing. The merger was being held up. And they decided to sort of capitulate in some way to Trump by firing Stephen Colbert, by actually ending that show. They aren't just firing him, they're actually ending the show that he is on. And so, which is unusual because that show has been around for decades, just with different hosts. And so, that's what South Park is making fun of. They're making fun of that seeming coincidence, because the line that they gave for firing Stephen Colbert was that it was purely for financial reasons, which makes no sense literally, because his show was the highest rated late night show on television on any station. So it was clearly not financial. It was clearly, I think most people believe it was a political act. So
yeah, it definitely seems like. I know Colbert made a weird cartoon about Trump, making fun of him a lot too. I forget.
Oh yeah. He's been going after Trump for since Trump's first administration. So,
well, here's the thing with South Park. If I had to fill my mom in on some of this because she don't really watch it, but she's going to watch this season. And who knows, she might backtrack. But originally there's a teacher, and I forget his name, but he has glasses, and I think he used to have a little sock puppet. He became Trump, and it would just be the teacher with an orange face, but not Trump's face. And basically the guy would like flip out and become Trump and do crazy stuff with politics and just craziness in the last season. And I think he might have been in the other season some, but basically he was a teacher that would just kind of freak out in the Jekyll and Hyde and become Trump, and then end up at Republican conventions and going crazy and all kinds of stuff. But what happened in this episode, you'll see it when the townsfolk break in because they think it's him. They found out it's not him anymore, that Trump is something else, and Trump has a real head now and the real face. He's not the teacher face. And then it gets into that more to where possibly it's no big deal, but there's a lot of Trump penis in this episode, and there seems to be an illusion that his penis may be a possible alien life form that directs him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm laughing. I'm laughing. And I think what's so funny about the whole thing of his penis is that you remember where the whole thing about his penis started. It was with Stormy Daniels stuff.
Yeah.
Because she made a statement about his lack thereof. and it was part of her testimony in open court. And so it's just hilarious that is still a thing. I just find it so bizarre. It's like, why am I living at this time when I get, although it's very funny, and it's very funny. I mean, this is part of the reason why fascism will not succeed in the United States, is because we have a sense of humor about these things, and don't really, I don't know, we just don't take it seriously. And all of the autocrats that we're dealing with have such thin skins. They're, you can get them on Twitter. You can get them mad on Twitter. It's so bizarre. I mean, it's like,
it's crazy.
You can actually interact with them on Twitter and piss them off.
Yeah, and,
you don't have power over people if you can do that. Not really.
Humor is the best medicine.
Absolutely.
Well, and power anything with an ego.
Right. Well, and it's the best. It's the best resistance. It's the best.
Well, I'm telling you, it exposed him. Called him a Middle Eastern dictator, and all. I mean, it exposes him completely. It's the craziest. I've never. It's kind of like a political cartoon, the whole thing, but it just rips him to pieces.
I want to watch it again so I can process it, because I was laughing so hard that I couldn't stop laughing. His penis reminded me of, is it Slimy or Slimer? The name of Oscar the Grouch's best friend that lives with him in a trash can. So I couldn't stop laughing because I pictured that, and then I was like, we got to watch it all over again. I would pay money to watch it with Wham.
Look, it's a new version of Mr. Hanky.
Yep.
I love South Park. There's games they make of South Park. They're the funniest thing. Like, they fight Kim Kardashian or something in an abortion clinic, and Nazi fetuses and craziness. Like, they're crazy. Those libertarians. And they did say in a mockingly way that they were truly sorry, with a weird smirk on their face at some convention about it.
They are not sorry in the least.
I know.
And nobody,
they slipped it in, didn't they? Didn't they do it like against the wishes and slipped it in? Or I read something.
Yeah. Basically what happened is that all this stuff came down about Trump and Colbert and everything. And I think they were like sort of warned not to do something, and so they did this episode anyway. They just did it anyway, and it's become this whole thing. It's
I know he's released a statement from the White House. I haven't read it, but I'm sure he's going to try to sue them again.
Oh, whatever. Just whatever.
Napoleon syndrome. That's what
oh my God.
We're going to watch Happy Gilmore 2 that came out on Netflix, the Adam Sandler sequel to that funny movie, Happy Gilmore 2. I've been watching Murderbot on Apple. That's really, really good, funny, about some lady wrote the book. So I forget her name. I think Martha Wells or something, but it's got the guy, one of the Skarsgård's brother. He's like this android that watches space soap operas, like weird, funny Star Trek soap operas, and he's obsessed with them. But he's also he's a murder bot.
Yeah.
So he goes crazy and kills things, but it's actually really good and funny. Sci-fi, that's good.
No eye contact.
There's a weird show in there too called Severance. That's really weird. That's about, you basically it has Christopher Walken in it, John Turturro, and they're gay for each other, which is really strange to watch. I'm sure that was fun to watch them do that and joke around and stuff. But anyway, basically you go to your job, and somehow when you go home, they do something to your brain so you don't remember your job. And it gets weird as hell. And we watched the first season, and now there's a second season, but it's definitely very strange. And then, of course, Murderbot. There's a lot of good stuff on Apple, but
it shows disassociation in the real, like how sadly splitting. Like, you leave work, and once you get on the elevator and leave, you forget everything, and it's creepy, actually.
Yeah,
because the corporation's not good. It's kind of showing again in ways our government, I think.
It's a weird show called Severance. That's good. Christine always makes fun of the guy's chin.
Well, I don't make fun of it. He's just very distinctive. It looks like an implant or something, but it's real.
He has a weird chin.
Yeah.
He has a weird chin.
The guy that's in it, it's an actor that's in it. That's the main
and not
actor.
A butt chin, but a long chin. You would know what I'm saying if you
and gosh, What else? Oh, so what's going on with the Mercury retro? That's happening, right? Is Capricorn, Saturn going backwards? Have you kept up with the new
I
one?
don't know about Saturn, but no, Mercury is in retrograde until August 17th.
Saturn's done. It was retrograde.
Okay.
That's one reason we were fighting like crazy. And I'm Mercury, well, Virgo. I get blamed for everything. And then I blame him because he's the devil, Saturn, which I'm kidding.
I think the devil and Loki show up between our signs and try to get each
I'm
other.
Loki too. Yeah.
But
I say just don't care more about things
there's
than living
definitely
in the moment.
some archetype things that are strange.
It's scary.
But definitely that Katie Page is on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. I wish you could see those, but I don't know if you would want to. But especially Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, it's just crazy. Like they had Chris Bledsoe on with his daughter summoning the light beam plasma with the Monroe Institute, and then of course the CIA, Andrew Bustamante, and all them there, and definitely strange. I have there's some footage of Fukushima that was on that Explorers episode. Remember the what was it? Wasn't it Explorers, the alien thing you told us about with the 4 episodes on Netflix? I can't remember what they called, Explorers or something, ma'am. The one with the 4 episodes, and they had a Fukushima episode with the monks in Japan and all that.
Oh yeah.
That last episode, it was all good, but that last episode, those lights over the planet.
Yes, those were weird.
I think those might, I don't know for sure, but it seemed like those might have been the people that passed away. And then one of the guys even said that they have like some weird folklore when you die, you turn into something to ascend the light or something. It's weird.
Right. Well, what's interesting about that is that there's a book that was written by Charles Pellegrino called To Hell and Back, which is a book. It's a blow by blow account taken from several sources, including eyewitnesses and also just what science has been able to illustrate about these things, of the nuclear explosions over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the reason that he calls it To Hell and Back is one of the things that the book focuses on are individuals who, because of their just weird situation that they survived. They were people that were both in Hiroshima and in Nagasaki. Like they survived Hiroshima and then they traveled to Nagasaki and survived Nagasaki. So they were like in both explosions, basically. And one of the weird accounts that witnesses that survived talk about in the immediate aftermath of both explosions is seeing, it was like the night after and the days after the explosion. At night, people reported seeing these blue lights that would move in groups through what was left of the city, through the ruins. And there apparently is a Japanese tradition that, and it comes out of their earthquake tradition, when people would die because of earthquake or resulting fire or tsunami as a result of the earthquake, that people who died would show up in the ruined places, as these blue lights. And so when I saw that on that show, I remembered that from this book, that people that witnesses of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the aftermath, had reported the same thing. It's very bizarre. In fact, it was the way one witness described it was almost like a bluish glowing fog that would sort of move along the ground in the areas, or several discrete lights that would move together, like family members, or something. It just really, it's creepy. The book is really good, but it's really creepy.
I saved it. But and also those in the Fukushima, those lights all come together and like vanish. Like did they go through the tunnel of light or something in the portal?
Right, exactly.
And that phenomenon is very similar to some of the light beam stuff I've seen. And I've seen those balls of light, and I've seen different blue light balls of light, blue, like in the heavens, like a blue spear that was energy, red. And I think there's definitely something to it. I'm getting my little goosebumps. My goosebumples.
Little goosebumples.
And that usually means that there's something to it for sure. But yeah, that was some of the best footage I've ever seen of the UFO stuff. That particular one. That was crazy. We played it on air with Jay that night, and he even was flabbergasted by it. You have to wonder, was that the people that passed away? And some guy said it was UFOs directing the radiation, which, I mean, I'm not going to say disagree or agree with that, but I don't try to make anything an absolute, but definitely that's interesting what you say. For some reason I was thinking about, they always talk about in Transylvania, the weird blue flames on the roads and stuff.
Right.
Things like that. So it's definitely strange. And that's the thing with Chris Bledsoe, the things he is summoning. And he is summoning stuff, and they say when he does it, he enters like a Zen-like state, and his daughter can do the same thing. And they even put him in a copper room on an episode, and every time he thought that there was going to be an appearance in the sky, he couldn't see the sky, he would lift his hand, and they had cameras all out there, and every time he would do it, one would appear and do something. But I also that's on there. And I'm also wondering if that's what he's interacting with, is this, how many people have passed away in his life? Is he dealing with, they went down to the Everglades and did it in the dark, and all these lights like that came to the trees that he summoned. And is it deceased loved ones and, and fairy folk, whatever, it could be anything, but I think there's something to it. It's our dead. It's that Barry that Israel shaman dude said that the dead can travel in balls of light. So there's definitely something to it. The weirdest thing is just thinking about it. Damn, when I croak, I'm just gonna be like a ball of light. Like, what does that feel like?
Even the crazy Bible, which I'm not saying is correct, they call it the Father of Lights, right? As God, or the all-seeing eye.
He's the sun, and we're just gonna be like a tadpole.
There you go.
Tadpoles.
Basically,
the sun may be the main source of it all, and that's what we broke off from, or whatever. I don't know.
That's why they say not to look at it like the Ark of the Covenant or whatever. That's what I always thought. Yeah. But I'm like, I look at the sun, and that was before I was told not to. But the more I looked at it, I would see stuff in it. Like you've said you've seen stuff where it's.
I've looked at the sun tripping on I'm not going to say the word ASID, and. One time I was reading Revelation. This is when I was younger and crazier. Oh, I'm still crazy, but I saw the sun turn into an angel and fall from the heavens while I was reading Revelations on acid, which I don't know what that means, but I also saw weird stuff when Heaven's Gate died. And I feel weird and silly saying that because you don't really want to be associated with that. But the night, I didn't know anything about them at all. I was tripping. Thanks. I could be in there. I probably could. But yeah, I already got some of the criteria half done. The meatball. But anyway, we got about 5 minutes. Anyway, the night they died, I saw him on TV. That crazy Applewhite dude. And for some reason, I was tripping. It made me start crying. I was like, what the hell? I went outside and looked at Hell Bob and saw all these little lights, like the lights we're talking about, going towards a comet. Was it just my imagination reacting to? No, I saw that before and then saw the Applewhite on TV. I don't remember, but I know I saw the night they died, weird lights going towards that comet. So that was weird. I don't know what the hell it means. Everybody says those people were nice, but if you get into the HBO documentary, it seemed to be some kind of abuse going on, or they would like leave their kids and join it and not talk to your children anymore and weird stuff like that and craziness. And cultish. Things like that. Yeah.
It's cultish. Think about, like we've all talked about, religion and all these things can be very cultish. You have to be careful to use your own mind. We don't know what that is that's taking our souls or whatever. So we need to be careful.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say the last 4 minutes, and I wanted to tell Wham. My mom, something on Facebook was taking like a legal settlement for PSFI runoff water in certain area codes that give you testicular cancer or cancer. So we got a hold of them, and they claim they haven't asked for money or anything. And I've talked to the lawyer and signed everything. So at first I was like, hopefully this isn't a con, but it seems to be legit. There was a toxic situation in the zip code where I lived when I got testicular cancer, and now I'm on a class action settlement thingy, which could happen in 10 years and I could get $5, but you never know, you might get something. But every time they call, they use different numbers. So I'd put Meatball Fund as the name of every time they call, I'd say Meatball Fund. Yeah, that'd be great if I got like $5,000 or something. But I doubt it. I'm not getting my hopes up.
Always 5, which is your life path number.
Yeah, you never know.
Means change.
My luck usually is like $7 for those things. Like one of them sent me $7 once.
Doesn't it help though not to feel so crazy? Like there's actually other people that are sharing.
There's supposed to be some community of us that because behind me in that neighborhood, a dude got testicular cancer, an older man named Lamar, who was a lot older than me, and he got it, and he lived right behind me.
It made me think of that what's that stuff for weeding, that it causes cancer. So I told him that. I said, hey, it's probably environmental. Boom. Yeah. We'll see what happens, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Nothing may happen, but you never know. I've never done one for cancer, so that's for sure. Done little stupid ones for streaming services that ripped you off or something, but we'll see what happens. But let me see what's going on with the schedule, and we'll close out. I don't even remember who the guest is next week. Oh, Maxim Furyk. Yes, I do, because I just spoke to him. Coal Region Hoodoo. He's like a rock journalist that's hung out with lots of rock stars and interviewed them and stuff. We've had him on for Bigfoot, and he's got Coal Region Hoodoo, which I'm trying to get a PDF of that. For some reason, he hasn't sent me one, so I just have to look at the table of contents. He sent me the Bigfoot book. I'll have to write him again. But anyway, the 8th is Scott Pelzer. That's a dude that was doing a Kickstarter for a paranormal series, like a TV kind of show. Derek Rook, that's another weird comic book thing. Jerry Avalos, he talks about everything. He used to work with Carrie Cassidy. He's like a shaman, right? He's pretty cool.
Yeah, he doesn't say that, but yeah, he's got the qualities.
He told me
Anthony Fusilla's returning on Mars. Michael Winkle, Paranormal, that's when you come back in September. Mike Hacker's coming back for some kind of book. I think it's some weird science book. That's with you, Wham. Then Michael Kowalski on the Jim Willis book, Bigfoot book. September 26th, working on that. October 3rd, Ernie Altbacker and Josh White. That's a Area 51 funny comic. Dave Goodsward. That's with Jay. That's something about Lovecraft in Florida and all kinds of paranormal stuff. And then I'm still doing October 17th. And then October 24th will be our Halloween show. That's Jacoby. I always have trouble saying his name. Jacob with a Y on it. Jacoby Matot. That he did a crazy comic book graphic novel called Pumpkin Guts, the Hellbound Halloween, about this pumpkin-headed dude. And he also has hearses and a car that's like Christine. So he's going to be our Halloween headliner. You'll be here for that, Wham. And then 31st, no show. Ain't doing that on Friday. And then back November 7th. You'll come back November 7th. But I'll send the rest of that later. But Jacoby Matot, he has a car just like Christine from Stephen King. So we'll be talking about hearses and his book and all kinds of craziness. He dresses up like vampires and weird stuff. But all righty. Well, you listen to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, Christina. Thanks to our guests. And we'll catch you next week. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Watch that South Park.